All right, Albert, I appreciate you talking with us today. Could you introduce yourself just a little bit?
My name's Albert Hamilton. I've been in the JDOT program, coincides with mental health court at Valley for just about a year now. Actually, exactly a year. I got out of jail a year ago. I had several felonies, and I was really grateful to be able to get into mental health court and to have a resolution that was not prison time.
Now, some folks may not be familiar with what mental health court is. Could you explain that?
Sure. So I have a mental health diagnosis that goes back to 1999. I was originally diagnosed bipolar. I've been diagnosed bipolar several times, but over the years, my understanding of it has changed into that I suffer more from depressive symptoms, but then coinciding with substance abuse. I self-medicated to get out of depression, or to not have to feel the lows, which in turn, with the correct combination of substances, can throw me into mania and psychosis. So, I got sober the first time when I was 20, and I had about 9 years in my mid-20s to early 30s, and I do really well when I'm sober, but the temptation to self-medicate to feel better, or to what's the right word? Maximize the way I feel is always a draw. So I've struggled with that, and then after those 9 years of sobriety, I started relapsing in my early 30s, and it's been a real struggle since then to get sober and stay sober. It led me to homelessness. I was on the streets of Salt Lake for 2 years, initially staying couch surfing with friends until I burned those relationships, and then a good year at the homeless shelters and sleeping on the streets. And so between my mental health condition and addiction, I took myself down as far as I could go. I was pretty much hopeless. I didn't care. I gave up completely on myself, and as a result picked up a lot of felony charges just from being crazy on the streets and running around and trying to figure out how to survive by myself, with the resources I figured out from being homeless.
So what does the mental health court do in that case? Or do they say, well, you have this number of felonies and you can go
Sure.
to jail, or you can get treatment?
Basically, there's a few tiers to mental health court. There's a 1, 2, or 3 year mental health court program. It's very similar to drug court for people who are familiar with drug court. But if you have felonies, it's basically 3 years. So that's the program I'm in. I'm just coming up on 1 year. And it's, from my understanding, it's basically a jail prison deferment program. So instead of putting you in jail or prison for however long that would be based on the charges and the sentencing guidelines, instead we're going to put you in long-term treatment and give you structure and see if that works. Because I know, being in the program and seeing a lot of people in it doesn't work for everyone. Not everyone is ready. Some people are kind of just playing the game to get out of their troubles, and thankfully for someone like me, I became ready. I wasn't really right off the bat. I got out of jail and I relapsed right away, but it was a pretty good reminder in getting out of jail. And I came and checked in here, and they're like, okay, well, you're good to go. And I kind of was on the assumption that I was going to be going into residential treatment. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going back to the homeless shelter, which was good though, because it put me in the situation where I needed to kind of test myself. And, I ran into someone that was using meth, and at first I was like, no, I'm not going to. And then I said, you know what, it. And there were consequences right away. I luckily was able to meet a friend, get reintroduced or get reconnected with a friend that was really kind and let me stay with her for a couple days. But I also lost my bed at the homeless shelter and had to sleep in the doorway, waiting to get another bed for a couple days. And I got to a point where I was like, what, how much longer do you want to do this? In internal reflection, do you want to keep living like this, or do you want to start getting it back together no matter how hard it is? And it was really, mental health court and JDOT were extremely supportive. I was honest about my relapse. I told my PO, I told JDOT and Valley, and then I talked about a mental health court, and they got me into a place called Fisher House for transitional kind of living. That was a really good start, so I wasn't like on the streets tempted, in that early sobriety. And then after a pretty short time at Fisher House, I got JDOT housing, which I didn't even know was a thing, and I was like, oh my God, wow, my own apartment that's paid for until I start working. A really incredible opportunity. And since, I had a little slip up, like as I call a half measures relapse, like I had gabapentin and kratom in my belongings that I recovered from property when I got out of jail. And I started taking that at home, thinking that they wouldn't test for it here. And it came back positive. And it was another opportunity after about 4 months of being in the program for me to get fully honest, and especially honest with myself, and just say, okay, do you want to really do this, or do you want to half step it and, find shortcuts, which is I think it's a real sign of addiction, is finding shortcuts or finding easier ways to get through things. And so I got honest about that. It was another opportunity for me to be honest, and since then I've been completely clean, and I've stayed on Rocket, or they call it the Rocket docket, in mental health court, where you're just showing up for everything, testing clean, and doing the next right thing.
That's awesome. So you've been with JDOT now about a year, you said.
Yeah.
And what's that process been like for you?
It's been really, really good. I actually worked in mental health before my last relapse, or into my last relapse, and I knew about. I was with a Medicaid provider, and I knew about Valley, and I heard a lot of horror stories. The person I worked for didn't speak very highly of it, and I heard we had crossover clients that didn't speak very highly of it. So I kind of came in thinking, but I was really pleasantly surprised. I've had some really good therapists since I've been here. The case managers I've had have been extremely supportive and trusting, and getting me into housing and helping me get the basic necessities that I've needed to kind of get started back in life again. Everything here has been a really good experience, and I've been really happy about that. I feel extremely supported here, and without Valley, I would have had nothing. My family they didn't turn their back on me. I made them turn their back on me. They didn't want to deal with my my bullshit, for lack of better terms, anymore. And so JDOT was all I had when I first started. And I got out of jail, and after being homeless for a year, I had JDOT and one friend or two friends that were talking to me. After having had a pretty big life, several years before that. So it's been huge. It's been everything to me.
So what do the next couple of years look like for you?
Well, I still have 2 years on mental health court, so I think that's good to continue the structure, testing twice a week. I have a part-time job doing handyman type work, which is good to fill up my free time. And I'm really trying to just take it easy, one day at a time. And I participate in AA meetings, and I work that program, as well as coming to JDOT as an extra kind of layer of structure for my recovery. So I'm just really trying to take it simple for the first, until I'm completed with mental health court, and then, hopefully I can stay sober and set higher goals then. But for now, it's really just about staying sober and continually doing the right thing, and being responsible, showing up to work, and really trying to be a better person. That's what I'm focused on.
What I enjoy about talking with you today is your expectations are incredibly realistic. I haven't heard you singing lofty goals. You're just doing the work, and that's awesome. So I hope nothing but continued success and sobriety for you all.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's really, really hard. I don't, if anyone says it's easy, or, for me, it's been really, really hard. And I think that's a good thing, because it's, I'm forced to look at myself. I'm forced to work through my issues. And I don't really there's no real escape. I'm free to, if I wanted to go use, but I just, I've gotten to the point where I really don't want to go backwards, and I want to have a life again. I didn't think it was going to be this hard to get it all back together. And so part of it is it is really challenging, but another part of it is I'm grateful for it, because if it weren't this challenging, I don't know if I would be able to stay sober, if that makes sense.
They don't call it work if it isn't hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you talking with us today, Albert. And again, continued success and sobriety, and just hoping some good things come your way here.
Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity.